I think I was selected to deliver this call to action because I'm probably about the oldest one in the room, and I've probably been fighting weeds longer than about anybody, 60 plus years. I grew up on a small farm in central part of North Carolina and learned to control weeds with a hoe. We didn't have the things called herbicides back then. I also learned to plow a mule. His name was Bob. And I know the difference in G and haw and mown back. And I know to plow around the stump. Because if you plow corn, cultivate corn with a mule with a 4-shank cultivator, and you hit a stump, it'll stop faster than you do. And at 12 years old, that crossbar between the handlebars will hit you right in the mouth, and you will never forget it. I remember the day that we got a Super A farm all. And boy, things got better because you could plow corn one row at a time, didn't have to go down both sides. And that was an improvement. I also remember the day my dad came home with the first gallon of 2,4-D I'd ever seen. And he sent me out with a back-to-back sprayer to spray it in corn that was about waist high and had pigweed over knee high. And bless Pat, it worked. I thought, we have been saved. Well, things got better, and they continue to get better. I was in research and teaching and extension at NC State for 30 years. My first year there was 1970. I had grants and aid from 33 chemical companies to do herbicide evaluations. My last year was 1999, and I had 4. Times have changed a little bit. But this call to action is it's kind of like, what do we do now? And I first want to talk to my fellow farmers, and I say fellow farmers because I do farm a little bit, and it's not a hobby. My wife told me I could not have a hobby that was that expensive. She said, go play golf. She said I had to at least break even. So some years we make a little money. My brother and I farm the land we grew up on. Some years we make a little money, and the other years I don't talk to her about it. So farmers are at the center of the weed management community. Now, we're all a community here. You wouldn't be here. The farmers are at the center. The final decision on programs implemented for weed management lie with the farmer. The farmer has more to gain from good programs and more to lose from programs that don't work than anyone. We get information from a variety of sources, and sometimes we have to be kind of careful where we get that information. So the call to action for my fellow farmers is in categories. One is in education. We need to certainly increase our understanding of what causes resistance, what we can do to manage it, and we need to carefully select the information sources that we use, not only in learning more about resistance, but in making decisions on weed management programs. We need to pay a lot more attention to details. You know, modern weed management has allowed us to pay less attention to details for a while, but we're paying for that now. We've heard a lot of talk about scouting. I kind of prefer the word monitoring because I think it means more than just counting weeds. Field conditions, crop conditions, all those kind of things that go into making decisions. And we really need to pay more attention to post-treatment monitoring. We just can't spray our herbicides and then go fishing and assume everything's going to work 100% anymore. Mother Nature has a way of accommodating that. We need to do a better job of documenting escapes and managing those, controlling them, getting rid of them, even, for God's sakes, if it means getting out of the pickup truck. And there's a lot of monitoring that goes on out the pickup truck window, I know. We also need to think about post-harvest control when it's needed, because at least in the southern region of the country, in a corn crop, for instance, we can develop a whole new population of weeds and set millions and millions and millions of seed and undo what could have been good programs. So we need to think more about that. And We need to take a more long-term view of our operations. If you ask a guy who's farming today, what do you plan to be doing 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Virtually all of them are going to be saying farming or retired. We're getting older. But if we're going to be farming, we've got to do it more than 1 year at a time. And I know the problems with land rental leases and those kinds of things that are disincentives to long-term management approaches. But if we're going to be successful in managing weed resistance, we've got to take a longer-term view of things. Okay, now I want to talk to our university scientists, and I've been one, and I wasn't really as adamant as Mike Owen was about resistance management, and I was wrong. I was wrong. But you folks need to continue to work on causes and remedies of weed resistance because we still have a growing problem. We've not solved it. Maybe one of the reasons we haven't solved it is you need to work on your message delivery a little better. I know there's some great programs out there, some great programs, but we still got a growing resistance problem. We may actually need to get over our fear of social scientists, right? And work with those guys and create messages that may mean more to our audience than what we're doing today. We need to pay particular attention to economics because I know from my perspective and the growers that I deal with, money is important. And it comes down to, okay, show me the money. Show me where I can make a profit and do what you want me to do. We've got to get on with the economic issues. Also, I think you guys need to start thinking out of the box a little bit more. I know a lot of you in here have done a great job at that, but you need to continue to do that because we do need work on non-chemical approaches, alternatives to herbicides. We've heard all these people talk about, you know, all the plans and coming in with alternatives. And okay, what are they? What works? What's going to work for me? You showed me it works, and by gosh, yes, sir, I'll use it because I think it's important. Government agencies. I can't wait for this one because I know you're here to help. I know that. So I'm going to tell you some ways I think you might help. The Agricultural Research Service is our national agricultural research arm in USDA. Well, herbicide resistance is a national problem. It's a global problem. And it deserves an area of concentration in ARS. I would urge you to consider that. I know that in the past you've had some very successful area-wide programs for things like apple maggot and some other stuff. I don't recall all of them. But there's some real opportunities out there to demonstrate some successful programs on an area-wide basis. Some of these communities that some of the speakers talked about today. I'd really like to see ARS get involved in that. You know, somebody mentioned Palmer Amaranth in Iowa. I don't care where it is or what the weed is, but you folks need to start concentrating on this a little more. APHIS, the Animal Plant Health Inspection Service, do a great job on new weeds that might come in from abroad. We have some programs that have kept us from getting swallowed up by lots of pest problems. How about thinking about weed species that have just become resistant or where we've just found resistance? How about thinking about those as a new pest? They are, in fact, a new pest. So have some discussions about that. I don't know what all of the regulations allow you to do. Seems to me, though, it's a way to make some inroads. NIFA, the National Institute for Food and Agriculture. It used to be CSRES, and that got in my mind. I congratulate you on providing some grant money this year for herbicide resistance, specifically for herbicide resistance. I would admonish you that this is not a one-time need. You need to really think about this and get it as a part of a program. It's a big issue. It's a big deal. You heard our Undersecretary this morning talk about it being a big deal in USDA, and it is. And now for the Economic Research Service. I know that you have some data on the long-term profitability of resistance management in several situations. I've seen it. Where is it? You need to get on with getting that out, and not in some scholarly publication that only the economist can read. But give me a two-pager. And yeah, I can look at graphs and understand graphs. But give me a two-pager and tell me where the money is. How long is it likely to take me to make my money back? That's what I need to do, what I need to know in making my decisions. I hope you'll really think about this. NRCS, we've heard several people talk about NRCS programs today, and I realize that your concentration is on conservation program incentives. Unless we get a better handle on weed resistance, some of those programs won't go away because they'll be irrelevant. And I know you're aware of that, and I know you've done some work on it. And I know that there are growers out there who will tell you that some of your programs are disincentives to resistance management. So you need to have some discussions on how are your programs really affecting a grower's ability to manage resistance in the field. I know you can do it. The Risk Management Agency, RMA. You are the Risk Management Agency. And I believe what we've heard lots of times before, that herbicide resistance is a really big risk. So if you're serious about managing risks, I would urge you to start the consultations about what do you need to do. Is there a way to do it? Is there some sort of crop insurance incentive that you could help growers get over the hump to get things done that need to be done in the short term? Now, the Office of Pest Management Policy, Cheryl. I know that your organization was set up to organize and communicate pest management issues across agencies. Or at least I was told that when I went to work there. You're in a unique position. And I know from my years in USDA that sometimes communication across agencies is not what it should be. I would urge you to take on the role of the organizer and the primary communicator across agencies in USDA on resistance management issues. You, for instance, can get RMA, NRCS, the other important agencies together to talk about programs. And you can communicate that across agencies and make sure things are done that need to be done and that there's not overlap, that people aren't doing the same thing. Is there anything else you need me to tell you to do? EPA. You guys got a hard job. Because when you do it right, ain't nobody happy. But I am very encouraged by what you've been doing lately. Jack, listening to you talk up here, it makes me feel that there have been miles and miles of road traveled to get to where you are. And from my perspective, the things that you're doing through labeling, through communications, the requirements on labels are wonderful. I don't think the job's over. I think there's still things to do, and there probably will always be things to do. But you've done a great job so far, and I didn't mean to do that. I'm technologically challenged from time to time. A consultant base. I've worn several hats in my life. In addition to being a farmer and a university research and extension specialist, I ran a consulting business for 25 years. I had farmer clients as well as company clients where we did GLP stuff and that kind of thing. And I know how difficult it is to stay current in the things that you really need to stay current on. You're run ragged in the busy season. But you really do need to stay current on the new technologies and on the performance characteristics of those new technologies and how they fit your area and your growers and what they can do for you. And stay up with local trends and resistance problems. I mean, you gotta stay up with your local area, and you communicate across other consultants so that you know kind of what's out there and what might be headed your way, so that you can play a leadership role in local educational efforts. You have a clientele base that you can really influence, and you need to take leadership there. We growers, particularly ones who use crop consultants, really do need long-term plans. It's difficult to do from the grower's level, to do it all, but you guys can really help with those long-term planning options. We see your independence as being important, and what that means is if I'm going to hire a consultant, I want somebody to come and look at my situation and make recommendations from across the board. I'm not going to hire the guy who's selling me the product. Now, the information may be the same. I'm not saying it's not, but my perception is independence is important. I believe certification is also important. We've talked about potential certification programs with WSSA or some other organization, and to me what that does is indicate that yes, you've been through the training, and at least you've heard what people have to say on resistance management, and that's important. But probably as important as anything else, from my perspective, is keep telling me what I need to hear, even though it may not be what I want to hear. I can make the final decision, but you've got to help me out in hearing what I need to hear. Now for the commodity and farm organizations. You guys are doing a great job. I mean, the work that Soybean Board's been doing and bringing other crops in, I think is fabulous. There's a lot more work to do. I really urge you as commodity groups to form strategic alliances across commodities and regions. You folks have a lot of influence on legislators, local, state, national, and on the agencies of government. When you come in to talk, people listen because you represent the farmers. You can make things happen. And you can make things happen probably more quickly than a lot of our other groups around, particularly in government. But you can push the government. You could help organize some of these grower communities that we've talked about. I know farmers are independent cusses, and it's sometimes hard to get people to work together on things, but this may be one where we can actually get folks to work together on. It's a big enough issue, and people have been scared enough. If you've ever sat and listened to Stanley Culpepper talk years ago, if that didn't scare you, boy, you got nerves of steel. So I'd urge you to work together maybe more than you have, and I know it's beginning. I see it's beginning. But you're a central focus in this, particularly from the community planning stage. An input supply network. This is you're basically dealers, distributors. There's no question in my mind that you're the final and most influential information source. It's no different than if I go in to buy a car. Where's my information going to come from? It's going to come from the dealer. You guys are in the perfect position to help solve this problem. But the information you give out has got to be current, credible, scientifically sound, and non-biased. Now, I know we all have biases. But insofar as possible, you need to give out unbiased information. You need to give it based on your local conditions. You know what's happening out there because you have a lot of customers, a lot of clients right in your area. You're on the ground. You know, you see what's going on. To me, it's the people like Amy Asmus back there who sit in a position to have great influence on how we manage this issue going forward. And just like with the consultants, you got to stay current on all the technology and on the local pest and trends that are happening. And it's not easy because you got a business to run. You got to sit back and talk to the guy who wants to come in and have a cup of coffee. But you got to do it. And you really need to maintain access to all the products that you can. You know, I've had some of my growers back home tell me that, well, I tried to go buy what you told me to buy, and I couldn't find it. Because my dealer decided he was just going to work with this one chemical company and use their products. Well, as a dealer, I mean, it's your decision, but I would urge you, if at all possible, to maintain access to all the products that we're going to need to manage this issue. And now for the industry. And I originally had the chemical industry on this slide, but I decided to broaden it a little bit and include not only the chemical industry, but the seed industry, the equipment industry, all the people that work on technology. We really need to continue to work on technology. We're going to be using technology to solve this problem, and you're where it comes from. I know there are some really new things coming down the pike that I've heard about that just kind of knock your socks off. Really new, exciting ideas. But I hope, based on our past experience, that we've learned that it doesn't matter how good the technology is or how new it is. We can't do the same thing on every field every year and expect to be successful. It's like, I remember when I was about 10 years old, my mother had one of these old dusters that she took DDT and dusted the potatoes and beans. And she'd do it every week. And my dad came in from the tobacco field one day and she was getting ready to go out and dust her beans. And he said, "What you getting ready to do?" I said, "I'm going to go kill those bugs." He said, "I don't think you ought to do that this week." And she looked at him, "Well, why not? They're going to eat them up." And I thought he was crazy too. But he said, "If you keep doing that, they're going to get used to it." Now, my dad didn't know anything about resistance management, I can assure you. But he was a pretty good judge of Mother Nature. And he was right. Things get used to it. And if you continue to do the same thing in every field every year, things will get used to it. We need to integrate more diversity into our marketing programs. Cannot do the same thing every year. You folks are in a leadership position. You can make things happen with your marketing programs. I know some of you are doing it already. There's some disconnects between some of the major companies and some of the generics that we're going to have to work on. I don't know the answer to that. How do we get everybody to be on the same page? And I know that's an issue. I would encourage you to work together on industry-wide educational efforts and communicate with EPA and USDA and all of the other groups and make sure that story is what needs to be told and keep up with the education efforts. I urge you to offer incentives for good stewardship, and I think because of trade practices you have to do this individually. I don't think you can get together and decide what programs to offer, but anyway, you can do it individually, and I know some of you are doing that. And that's great. I would also urge you to consider partnering with the government on some incentive programs. I can tell you that for industry to come in and talk to RMA, you probably stand a better chance of getting something done than all the rest of us in USDA put together. And I'm retired from USDA, but I still consider myself one. So please consider helping us along in that area. And I think it could be rewarding. Professional societies play a key role by providing an overall organization and doing things like this. Making appropriate information available, ensuring the validity of messages. I know that WSSA is working on some sort of web portal that hopefully will help with ensuring the validity of the information that's out there. I don't know much about that, but I sure do encourage it. I think it's great. I think at the professional society level, we also need to ensure a platform for diverse opinions. We don't all know all the answers. But we need to have a platform for everybody to be able to speak and to give out their opinions. And we need to encourage open and full discussion of the issues. We're getting a lot better at doing that. Listen, I've been going to WSSA meetings for 45 years or more. And it's so much more wide open today and so much more informative than it used to be. The best thing that used to happen was fill up church and some of the older guys getting up and arguing with each other over whether the diuron was better at 2 pounds or 3 pounds. You know, who cares? The public interest groups, you play a significant role here. I urge you to consider all sides of the issue, to offer positive input, and to stay engaged. Because a civil discussion on the issues is very, very important. And you bring sometimes a unique perspective, and sometimes it's not as unique as you might think it is. But it's important that you stay engaged. In the agricultural press, I don't know how many press people we need here, or we have here. But you need to provide information from diverse sources. You need to fact-check your sources to make sure that the information you publish is scientifically sound and somebody out there is accountable for the information that you put out. You do a great job at helping to educate the farm community. I mean, people read your stuff from cover to cover. I do. It's great. You have done an excellent job at publicizing the problems, publicizing the issues. I encourage you to do just as good a job at publicizing the successes, because I think now we're ready to learn more about that. Folks, I think we have an opportunity here, an opportunity to work together to get herbicide resistance under control. It may, in fact, be the opportunity of a lifetime. And back in the early 1980s, when I was at NC State, I got to know a man named James T. Valvano, Jimmy V. And V, as we called him, was one of the most interesting characters I've ever been around. But he was a motivator. That guy took a group of ragtag basketball players in 1983, and they laid a whooping on the Phi Slamma Jamma from Houston that just made my heart tingle. Because I was sitting in the pit in Albuquerque and saw that last-second dunk. And I saw Jimmy V running around the court trying to find somebody to hug. The poor guy, he's an Italian. He liked to hug people. He couldn't even find anybody to hug. But Jim was the first one that I heard say, to take advantage of the opportunity of a lifetime, we must act during the lifetime of the opportunity. Now that makes sense. It does to me. And I think in this particular case, this opportunity does have a limited lifetime. We can't just put it off. Well, I'll work on that next year. We'll have another summit. Let's have another summit. That's not what it's all about. We've got to get to work today. We can't wait till next year. We can't wait till next week. We've got to get to work today. Or otherwise, this opportunity is going to outlive or be outlived by its lifetime. we're not going to be able to do it. So, I told you not to write on your index card, but now is the time. I want you to take this index card out, and I want you to put your name, your affiliation, what role you play in this weed management community, particularly as it relates to resistance management. And probably most importantly, what area are you willing to provide leadership to, or at least help with the organization of some of the things that we've talked about today? This is very important. I've got mine filled out. I'm going to get my drink. This is your drink card. If you fill this out, we'll have somebody out there at the bar to pick them up. And this is important. We all have a role to play. It doesn't matter whether you're with government, or whether you're an independent consultant, whether you're a dealer, whether you're with industry, whether you're a grower. We all have a role to play. And we've got to get started now. And we must all be accountable. As was said earlier today, we have to own this problem, because we, in fact, do own it. And we are also the ones that can help to solve the problem. We can make it happen if we choose to make it happen. Thank you for coming. The web people should respond by writing in that little box below the video with your name and the stuff that I said earlier. Yeah, we'll send you a drink card. I almost got through on time. I'll be glad to take a question or comment if you'd like. But if you'd rather go ahead and start the reception, we'll do that. We'll all be around. If you got questions or comments, corner somebody. Let's have a discussion. That's what we're here for. Again, thank you for coming. Thank you for participating. I think this has been a great session. You know, the comments, the feedback we've received, I thought was right on target. We stayed almost on time, and if it hadn't been for me, we would have. So I'll take the blame for that. Thank you. Safe travels. And keep going.